Hi all, this is Larry Feldman. In this video, I'm going to present part one in a two-part video series on how to create an arcade game type of controller. If you grew up in the 80s or 70s, 80s, 90s, you probably heard the term joystick, which was a hardware device used to control characters in a video game. And since I'm kind of a dinosaur, that's what I'm used to, and that's what I'm going to try to simulate here in the iPhone world with a touch screen. Okay, so what we'll do is open Xcode and create a new project, single view application. We'll call it arcade game. And I think you'll see that this type of template that I'm going to create is going to be very useful for a lot of different types of games. I think you're only limited by your imagination here, and I can think of a lot of games and have created several games using this type of technique. So I hope this is useful for you. So let's just call this arcade game, give it some sort of identifier. We're going to use Objective-C. Like I said, I'm a dinosaur and I learned Objective-C. I'm sorry I don't know Swift, nor do I plan on learning Swift. So let's just create this for the iPhone. Hit next. Don't need a repository for Git. And create. Okay, so let's go to the main storyboard. And you'll see that we have a view controller that's provided for us. And we're going to drag in a container view. Let's put it at the bottom and center it. And you'll see that the container view brings in another view controller. And let's change the background of the top view controller to black. And change this view controller to red. And let's do some auto layout here. So I'm going to make this 150 by 150. Let's set some constraints here. We'd like this, we need to constrain the width and height here as well, and we'll latch it to the bottom. And we'd like it centered horizontally in the container. And that looks pretty good. Okay, now we have to create a class that's going to be controlling this view controller at the bottom. So let's come up to our project and add a new file. A Cocoa Touch class. Let's call it Joystick View Controller. And we'll just organize these a little bit. Let's go back to our storyboard and click on this bottom view controller, and we need to assign the class that we just created, which is right there. Okay, so let's run this in the simulator and see what we have so far. It's not going to be much, but I'd like to make sure that we're on the right track already. And that looks good, except the view is white instead of red, so I'm going to fix that. I think the reason is that I actually have to change the view here. Let's change that to red and run it, and I think this will work. Okay, so that worked. Okay, so now let's come over here on the right again, and we need to drag in an image view. Let's drag it in here, and let's make it, let's try 50 by 50 for now. Okay, and we're gonna bring in an image asset to give this some character. Okay, so let's drag in an image. I happen to have one on my desktop. So we'll go to the assets folder, and I'm going to drag this spaceship.png in there. And then when we go back to the storyboard, I can click on the image view and assign it to spaceship. And that doesn't look that bad. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. Maybe make it a little thinner. Too thin. Okay, that looks pretty decent. So let's go to the joystick view controller header file. And I'm going to paste in some methods signatures here. And I'll explain these as we go. And let's go to the implementation file. And I'm going to paste in some properties. Okay, let me paste in a few variables that we're going to need. And in our viewDidLoad method, I want to set up this property for left action center. And left action center is the location within our joystick view controller. It's the center horizontally and vertically of that square. So we can say self dot left action center equals CG point make, and we have 75, 75. If you recall, the dimensions of that square were 150 by 150. And we're also going to default is in left, which is a Boolean, to false. Now, is in left just means that somebody's finger is on that joystick view controller, and we'll default it to false, meaning it's not touched yet. Okay, to save some time, I pasted in several methods. We have 3 methods that deal with screen touches. Touches began, touches moved, and touches ended. And then we have 3 methods below, which I'll get to in a minute. So touches began is pretty simple. We have a UI touch object, and what we do is we assign self.current touch position to be the coordinates within the view controller, which is this view controller down here. And we already have this double variable, which we defined up here, called x distance, and we have a double, which is y distance. And x distance is the horizontal distance between the current touch position and the center of the square. And the y distance is the vertical distance between the current touch position in the y dimension minus the center of the square vertically. And then we assign our Boolean is in left to true. Touches moved is identical to touches began. And touches ended, all we do is we set the is in left Boolean to false, which because somebody lifted up their finger off that joystick view controller. Then I have these 3 methods, which are pretty basic, and I think there's an easier way to do this, but I'm not sure how. When this method is called is in left, it returns a Boolean, which is the is in left Boolean that we've been using. Find distance x returns x distance, and find distance y returns y distance. So that's all we need to get most of the joystick view controller working. There's only one last touch, which I'm going to show you later on. Okay, let's go back to the main storyboard, and we need to set up our outlets here. So we'll go to the assistant, and let's control drag here, and this is going to be our rocket image. And then we need to come here to the UI view in red and come up here and call this joystick view, like that. Okay, so let's go to view controller here, and in the viewDidLoad method, I want to initialize the position of our rocket. So let's say self.rocketImage.center equals CG point make, and let's use the center of the view controller. Self.view.frame.size.width divided by 2, and this is the height. Divided by 2, like that. And let's run it in the simulator. Make sure I haven't broken anything. Okay, so this is looking pretty good for now. Let's add a timer. Let's call it game timer. And we will instantiate it right here. And I'm just going to paste it in. So we have self.gameTimer equals NSTimer. It's going to fire every 0.05 seconds or every 50 milliseconds. And it's going to call a method called gameGuts, and it's going to repeat. So now we need a method gameGuts. And that will turn off that warning. And now we need a double, which is, let's call it velocity x, and a double, which is velocity y. And this is going to be the velocity of our rocket. Okay, so now we need to import our joystick view controller .h, and in our gameGuts we have to call one of those methods in joystick view controller is in left. It's actually a bad name, is in left. That is because I created this video from a project where I had a left joystick and a right joystick. This is really should be is on joystick, but you get the idea. So if this is true, if somebody has their finger on that joystick, then we want to move the rocket. And the way we do that is by first getting the x and y velocity, and that's by calling those methods in joystick view controller. So we have find distance x, and then we have velocity y is find distance y. So let me just copy and paste that like that. And then we want to move the character based upon these velocities, the x and y velocities. So we have self.rocketImage.center equals CG point make, and we have the current position plus the velocity x, and we have the position in the y direction plus the velocity y, like that. And we will finish this tutorial in video 2. See you there. Thanks.